Trying again. Can you hear me now? All right. So welcome. Thank you everyone, both in person and online, for joining us this evening to hear about the construction progress on the new K-8 that's opening on Jason Dwelly Parkway in August of 2022, so very soon. This is actually the first time we've done a hybrid WebEx and in-person meeting. So I do ask for your patience. As you can see, we'll have probably some little technical things we'll have to figure out. So the way we're doing this is that the WebEx attendees are automatically muted with cameras off. We're asking if you could please use the Q&A tool to ask questions. That'll help me keep them organized as I'm trying to make sure I've answered them all and that we answer questions in person. You can ask questions in the Q&A at any time during the meeting, but we'll just get to them at the end. The chat is available as a backup, but I would ask if you can find the Q&A to please use it. That way we're not trying to find things in multiple places. In-person attendees will also have the opportunity to ask questions at the end. And to our in-person attendees specifically, if you haven't signed in on the computer in the front, you can sign in on your mobile device or on the way out, but we do want to get the names of everyone who's here in person. For tracing purposes, we've also been asked to put together a seating chart. So the way we're going to do that is there are sticky notes in the front. If you could just put your name on a sticky note and put it on the back of the seat that you're sitting at, I'm going to take a photo of that at the end because we're required to know where everyone was seated. All right, can we get it advanced to the next slide? Thank you. Both in person and online, we have panelists who are available to answer questions today. I'll be introducing them shortly. If you have any technical issues with WebEx, you can reach their support team at 1-866-229-3239. I have dropped that in the chat if you need that. This meeting is being recorded, and it'll be posted on the OCPS Facilities Communications YouTube page next week. But don't worry, you don't have to try to find that. If you signed up for this meeting, I will forward you that link next week. So you will both get a link to this presentation and the slideshow. So both the recording of this meeting and the slideshow here, I will be sending them out as a link to anyone who registered for this meeting. The slides will also be posted on board member Melissa Bird's page at ocps.net under School Board. So as I mentioned, we are going to learn about the construction today, but before we do that, I'm going to turn things over to School Board member Melissa Bird, who is on WebEx, for some opening remarks.
Hi, thank you so much, Lauren. Can everybody hear me? Okay. Okay, good. Thank you so much for everyone who has showed up tonight to attend. And I want to personally thank Lauren and the team because it took a couple days of practice getting all of this set up where it would work virtually and in person. But I figured there was probably people that would really enjoy being in person again, but then some that might still want to do it from home. So I love that we're able to do both. And as you notice, I am virtual. Unfortunately, I was planning on being there tonight, but my husband is actually sick, so I figured it probably was the best thing to do for me to stay home and keep all of my germs here at this house instead of taking them to the school. So I'm so sorry I couldn't be there in person with all of you, but the setup is great, so we can see what's going on. Terrific. I can hear everyone talking, so it's great. This school, as you know, is a passion project for not only myself, but for this community. When I got on the board 3 years ago, and this school wasn't scheduled until 2026 to be built, I called on you and we all got to work, and you guys wrote letters and I advocated, and here we are. We're almost halfway done with construction, and the school will be opening next school year. It's just so exciting. This is such a great opportunity for our kids that they will have the opportunity to attend this beautiful state-of-the-art kindergarten through 8th grade school. And I'm so thrilled that this is the first K-8 in my district, and it's going to be in Apopka. So I'm just so excited for this all around. So I am going to not take up any more time. I want to sit back and watch the presentation with you all, and we look forward to answering your questions when we're done. And let's go ahead and go for it, Lauren. Thank you.
Okay, and now we're going to hear a little bit about how the school's timeline is going to work from the area superintendent.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Raheem Jones. I'm the area superintendent for the North Learning community. So I currently supervise the 21 schools that are within the North Learning community, and very excited that this will be number 22 next year when it opens up. And truly, as Ms. Bird said, it's going to be our first K-8 that's in Apopka, that's in the North Learning community. So we're super, super excited about it. So what I would like to talk to you about today is the timeline of what it's going to look like before the school opens. So around December of this year, we will advertise the position district-wide, and interviews will take place. The interviews will take place with myself and the executive area director who supports me in the work of supervising our principals. So we are the two that will look at the resumes that come in. And I can tell you that when we look at the resumes, it's going to be a current principal. For opening up a new school, traditionally, we do not hire a brand new principal. It's always a sitting principal. It really is a rite of passage in our district for a principal to open up a brand new school, because it's a principal that has the vision that sets forth of what he or she wants to see. And we're always excited about that. So just to let you know that. So that's going to be about December. We're going to advertise that. In January, what happens is after we finish interviewing, I submit the names to Dr. Jenkins and Dr. Vasquez, and Dr. Jenkins will make the final decision on the name that I recommend to her to be the new principal of the K-8 school. And Dr. Jenkins will take that name to the school board for approval, and then we will have a principal that starts in January, that timeline. During the months of February and March, it's going to be a busy time for our new principal. So the new principal will start to survey the community to get input on the name, the mascot, the colors, and then the principal will also begin interviewing and offering contracts to continuing contract, professional service contract, and annual contract teachers. So the interviewing will start hiring at that time. And then March to April, during that time, then after we get the community names for the school, the principal will gather from the community the top 3 names, and the top 3 names will be given to me, and I will present those at the school board for final approval to the school board. So that's the timeline that we have there. Does anyone have any questions about the timeline? Yeah, and if there's anything, I'll be here for the entire presentation so we can ask that. So okay, thanks. I'll turn it back over to Lauren.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jones. So we wanted to start with the rezoning process just because I know that's a question everybody has. So the rezoning was actually a separate process where they had a number of hearings and then they took to the school board, and the school board voted on a plan and approved a plan. This is where you can find it. If you just want to find it on your own without the link, you just go to ocps.net, you click on enrollment, and then school rezonings, and all the rezonings that we've worked on are there. Since this one has been approved by the board, it'll be under board approved. And this presentation will be sent in the link that I will email you next week. But yeah, feel free to take a screenshot or a photo of that, and you can see the zone. So now I just wanted to introduce some folks who are participating either on the WebEx or in person. Since this is kind of an unusual format, what I'm going to ask is that if you're in person, oh, hang on just a second. Too much noise, sorry. If you're here in person, if you don't mind just waving, and if you're on the WebEx, if you could just turn your camera on so that we can just see you and you can wave, so that we can hopefully see some of the people who are here. So the architect on this project is Ziskovich, and we have Ed Napier here from Ziskovich. The construction manager is Wharton Smith. We have David Romero, Fernando Rodriguez, Brad Newton, and did Tom make it? Okay, Tom Widener is on virtually. The civil engineer for this project is Klima Weeks, and John O'Neill is on from Klima Weeks. The traffic engineer is Sandra Gorman. I believe she's on the WebEx, so hopefully you'll get to see her. Our project manager, Tamara Cox, is on the WebEx. So what a project manager does is they're the liaison between the school district and then the architect and the construction manager to make sure that everything that is built and designed is within the school guidelines for all of our new schools, and that the plans that get built are the ones that were designed. So it's a really important role. There are a few folks who from the OCPS facility side who I believe have joined us online. Project management team design manager Mo Arthur, senior facilities executive director Rory Salambean, the director of construction planning Jesma Lambert, and senior facilities director Faz Ali. My name is Lauren Roth, and I do communications for the facilities department, so that's who I am. And from facilities planning, we have Christopher Mills. We have, and I don't know if they're online or not, but from our operations department, Adam Zubritsky is with OCPS Transportation. With the Office of the Fire Marshal, we have Gail Ivy. And the OCPS police commander for this area is George Olemsky. And I did want to mention our municipal partners. We have here in person Mayor Brian Nelson and Police Chief Michael McKinley. Do we have anyone else from the city of Apopka here that I need to introduce? Okay. So I think that's it on the introductions. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Ed Napier so you can see some of the design plans that are actually being built and becoming real.
Thank you, Lauren. As Lauren said, my name is Ed Napier. I'm with Discovich Architects. We were the design firm on this K-8 prototype. We're going to review a lot of the items that you guys may have seen on one of the previous versions before we talk about construction, but we want to take you guys through that and just give you a little reminder of what the amenities of the school are going to be like, kind of give you a location. Bear with me 1 second while I get my pointer up here. So the new school, Site 90, located in Apopka, is located here off of Jason Dwelly. It's approximately 4700 Jason Dwelly. We are currently at Wolf Lake Middle School, Elementary School site, just to the south off of Jason Dwelly, and a neighboring elementary school that this will be relieving is Zellwood Elementary School. So a little bit closer zoom in of the site. The site is located just south of West Kelly Park Road, and it's directly across from Spinfisher Drive. So here we have a view of the site prior to construction. The site is approximately just under 15 acres, which is not a large site, but it's not a small site either. We have Jason Dwelly Boulevard, which is currently one lane running north and south on the east side of the site, with Spinfisher Drive dying into the site across the street. So what I'm going to show you here, this is the overall site plan of the building. We're going to go over some of the site amenities. I'm going to talk a little bit about traffic flow for both parents and buses. So we're going to start with the traffic flow first. Again, Jason Dwelly here to the south border of the drawing. You have, we will be adding a right turn lane, deceleration lane, into this drive, which is right across from Spinfisher. This drive will act as the parent pickup and drop off loop. As you can see, as you'll pull in, you will actually loop through the parking lot. Double stacked, that means cars side by side at pickup and drop off. What that allows us to do is it allows us to get a lot of cars on the site, and it keeps traffic from backing up onto Jason Dwelly. We can get approximately 243 cars on site before we actually get to the street. The reason the district asks us as the design team to do that is to allow for traffic to not be affected on Jason Dwelly as much as possible during pickup and drop off times. So as you circle through the lot, you'll pass past the gymnasium, which is at the back of the site. You'll run along the side of the building and you'll come to the front of the building, and this has a canopy, and this is where your student drop off and pickup will be for car riders. The blue dot signifies the main entrance to the building. That is the admin area at the center there. And when you come out as a car rider, you will be able to go left or right. Now, as we move further south down the site, there is another drive for buses only. This is right in and right out. So what that means is the buses will be coming from the north. They'll make a right-hand turn into the bus loop. They will drop off. They will circle out. and they can only go right out. So another way of eliminating some of the traffic issues of buses trying to go left and right, they can go right in, right out. It's very easy to get them in and out. Coming from the south up Jason Dwelly, we will be incorporating a left-hand turn lane into the median. So anybody approaching from the south will be able to enter that turn lane and turn left into the school site. This area here is also where the crosswalk will be located, coming across from Spinfisher. The main sidewalk will attach to the existing sidewalk at the side south of the site and will run along the whole front edge of the property all the way to the end of the property. So that's where the sidewalk will be located when the school opens. Some of the other site amenities we have that come along with all K-8s are a full-size track, as you can see to the southwest corner of the site. And the play field fits in between it, which is large enough for a soccer field. We also have amenities for track like shot put and long jump. The other thing that I want to point out is specific care has been taken in saving the trees along the southwest corner of the site to shield from the existing community that is there. We will also be adding a hedge line of bushes to even further enhance that sort of division of the properties. So you'll have less of a sight line. And that will actually start down here and run all the way along that property line. We have 2 outdoor basketball courts as a site amenity. And then as all OCPS projects are required, we do have space on the site set aside for future portables if ever needed. Now, in discussing the buildings, again, the back building is the gymnasium. The main building acts as the learning building along with the admin. You have a 3-story area, a 2-story area, and a single story along the back. So now we're going to go in and I'll give you guys a little sneak peek of a little rough area of what the plan looks like. Again, this blue dot ties back to that last slide we were at. That's your parent drop off. You'll enter into the admin area here. That acts as a sally port. That's a safety feature. So once you're inside that space, you cannot get into the school unless you are buzzed into either the back side of the admin or into the main corridor. That's all controlled by the admin. So once you're in there, you cannot get into the building unless you are supposed to be going into the building. But once you're into the building, we have the wing here. This is all classrooms. This will be your 1st and 2nd graders, along with some collaborative spaces. You've got your dining space that separates the front and the back of the building. Music and art at the back with the kitchen. And then this wing is your pre-K and your kindergarten wing. Again, we have the gym over at the other building. The 2nd floor of the building, which is only on the front side, so the road side, Jason Dwelly side, is all classrooms. And this is typically 3rd through 5th grade, all classrooms again. And then the 3rd floor, which is only about half or just over half of the front of the road side of the building, is the middle school, and that houses all the middle school classrooms along with a science classroom wing. So all OCPS projects are Green Globes projects, and what that is a commitment that the district has made to sustainable design and sustainable spaces, green spaces for children to learn in. Some of those options that we've brought into this project are listed on the screen here. We provide native plants and grasses so that their irrigation requirements are much lower. The building is 10% more energy efficient than what the building code requires. We offer high energy efficient appliances, chillers. All classrooms that are occupied on a regular basis have windows, so there are no windowless classrooms that are actual everyday regularly used classrooms. And we also have a fully automated building automated system, which allows the district to really control the function of the building and minimize the energy use and really make it more efficient. So over these next few slides, I'm going to show you guys kind of what you can expect the building to look like when it's done. I apologize here for the people in the room. It's a little dark, but we'll do our best. So this is looking at the building from the northeast corner, looking south, kind of down Jason Dwelly. So you have Jason Dwelly here, just off a frame. The sidewalk that's going to run along the front of the property. So this area here is that the parent drop-off loop that we talked about. So you're going to come in here, swing around, come through the parking lot, and back around to the front of the building. As you can see, we have a canopy here that runs all along the front of the building. So the kids, if it's raining, they can get out of the car and they're immediately under a canopy and can get directly into the building. And from this view, you can also see kind of, this is the 3-story portion of the building and the 2-story further to the south. And we break that up with this 1-story addition where the admin area kind of comes out. It really helps kind of break the building up. It's not going to feel like this big honking building when it's done. So now we're a little bit further down Jason Dwelly, looking back towards the northwest. This is Jason Dwelly, obviously. We're going to have a right-hand deceleration lane here, not currently shown in the rendering, and we'll have a left-hand turning lane here. Again, you'll be able to pull right in to the site, swoop in, come back out. You'll either be able to exit left or right. Just off slide here, you can see the buses. That's where your buses are going to come in. There's a small retention pond here, a small one here, and then there's a small one on the other side of the site also. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to David Romero. He's with Wharton Smith, and they are handling the construction of the project.
Thank you, Ed. Like Ed mentioned, my name is David Romero. I'm the project manager for Wharton Smith, construction company leading this construction project over there. So first, I want to go through a couple key milestones that we've hit so far and what you can kind of expect to see over the coming months. So we started the project in February, very start of February 2nd of 2021, so earlier this year. Once we got started, if you live in the area or have driven by, you've noticed some of the trees coming down. We've also started the export fill operation, getting ready for the building to get started. Most of those activities were completed by the start of the summer, so in June. At that same time, we started working on what are called tilt wall panels, or construction or concrete tilt wall panels. They're the exterior structure of the building. I have a couple more pictures that we'll be able to show that will explain that a little bit more. That process all took place over the summer and was completed in July. We just are about wrapping up the structural steel erection of the interior portions or the interior structure of the building. Again, I do have a couple more pictures, but that was just about completed. We're doing our last little bit of inspections this week. So end of August, early September, the structural steel erection was completed. Right now, we're working on the roofing throughout the campus. So we have majority of the classroom building completed at this point. So the main large three and single-story and double-story building is all about completed. We're getting ready to start the gymnasium building shortly. We are working on the utilities throughout the campus. So we have a lot of storm water, a lot of domestic and sanitary piping that are all ongoing. Long-range goal is to get all of that work completed and then start working on some of the parking lot and amenities that Ed was talking about earlier. Now that the roof system is on the classroom building, we're actually working on the fireproofing on the inside. We're getting started on the interior framing. So the interior metal partition walls that go in between classrooms, all of that space is getting started or just getting started now. And we'll be mainly working on the inside of the building for the foreseeable future. I'm very happy to say that we are on schedule. We're ready for school to start next August. Our substantial completion date is this upcoming summer, so summer 22. So like I mentioned, I got pictures to kind of go through. So we'll go through that same timeline again. This picture is first when we started, about towards the end of March. The dates are across the bottom here. So this again is looking from this northeast corner, looking southwest to the site. So this is the main classroom building. Through here, you can see some of the foundation work. Concrete foundations are getting started in this point. This is the gym building, or just the starting of the outline. We've got our parking lot that Ed mentioned a couple times through kind of snaking through here. This is the early start of the project. So after the trees have been removed, the excess fill has been removed, and we're starting on the structure of the building. So we step forward another month. We are into April. Most of the foundations for the buildings are completed at this point, and we're starting what is called tilt wall construction. So what actually happens is we will pour concrete walls on the ground, and we will bring a crane in to erect those walls and stand them up. So there are a couple more pictures of that a little later in the presentation that kind of explain that a little bit better. Towards the end of May, we are continuing with that structure construction. So again, a majority working on the tilt wall construction for the exterior walls. We've also got a lot of the slab on grades poured throughout the classroom building. This is the single or the double or 2-story and 3-story sections of the building here. We're also working on the single-story classroom sections over here, and continuing to work on the gym. So all of that kind of happens pretty quickly, but by the start of July, we were actually starting to erect the tilt wall. So you can see this is pretty in progress of that work going on. You can see our crane towards the middle section of the building here. All of these walls are picked up with those cranes after being picked up from the ground around the site and left standing there while we complete the interior structure of the campus or the interior structure of the buildings. So that crane continues around as we get into the end of July. All of that work happens pretty quickly. I don't know if you have anybody driven by, but about over the course of 3 weeks, we had all the walls standing and are working on the structural steel portion of the building. So you can kind of see it on this interior portions of the building here. You can see the structural steel that holds the interior floors, second and third floors on each of those classroom sections. It also supports the roof system. So all of that work is ongoing was ongoing during the month of July and August. You can also see the gym building is now formed, or all the walls are up for the gym building as well. And then this is our most recent picture. So this was about a week ago, towards the end of August. You can see the roof is getting started on this section of the building. So the 2- and 3-story sections of the building have the roof system on. We are getting ready to go onto the single story at this time. You can see this white material on the roof here. It's a little hard to tell on the projector, but that's the insulation for the roof system. And then we are starting some of the utilities. So these are our piping materials throughout the what will be the future track area. All of that utility work is ongoing at the moment, getting installed throughout the site. So now we have some pictures looking closer at the ground of the actual construction on the ground. So stepping back in time a little bit, this is when we were working on the slab on grades for the building, doing a lot of the underground plumbing work and electrical work that goes in before we pour the slab on grade. This is a little bit a blow up picture of tilt wall construction. So like I said, we actually form walls on the ground and then we'll pour those with concrete and then use a crane to stand those up. So these sections here, you can actually see these are going to be future windows on the single story portions of the building. Some of these taller panels where you can see multiple levels of windows or door openings. And some of these, those are some of the taller panels, 2- and 3-story sections of the building. Again, we have a lot of construction or interior reinforcement. That's what all these lines throughout these panels are. The interior or tilt wall reinforcement rebar that goes into those panels. And then, like I mentioned, so this is what it will look like on the ground when we are erecting those tilt panels. So we again bring in this large crane here to pick those panels from the ground and stand them in place where they will go for the exterior structure of the building. And it all gets held up while the structural steel portions, the interior structure of the building, holds it all together. And then these are some of our more recent pictures. So this is the roof system ongoing. This is actually the 2-story section. So this is about a month ago. These white portion here is the insulation, and right here is what's called a lightweight insulated concrete roof, meaning they use insulation and then a lightweight concrete material to form the actual roof structure. And it just part of the roofing system that OCPS has used throughout their campuses. This is part of the inside. So at this point, we also poured the elevated slabs on each of the different levels for the building. This is actually a picture of the 3rd floor interior side, which would be the middle school section of the campus, before any of the walls go up or anything. So we are just getting ready to start forming those interior walls throughout the campus now that the roof is on, and we're working through that process. And that's where we are today. So I will turn it back to Lauren for some questions.
Okay, so now we go to the question and answer portion of the presentation. So there were 2 questions that came in online. So I'll go ahead and get those answered, and then let's take questions from inside the room. The first question was, are there any plans to expand and add sidewalks specifically to connect with the Oak Ridge neighborhood? Now, I know we added them on our property. And Mayor, did you want to address that, or the sidewalks? They were asking if sidewalks will be extended out to Oak Ridge. Okay. Okay, and Mayor, do you want me to have Pam Richmond? Because she's on the call. Okay. Pam, I think you've been unmuted. Would you be able to add anything about where the sidewalks are being planned for by the time the school opens?
We're currently assessing where we need to put some sidewalks right now, and certainly if we need sidewalks on from Oak Ridge to the school, that's something that we will prioritize. We have other sidewalks in the area too that we're looking at.
Okay, so looking at other areas, do you want to?
We're looking at from Kelly Park at Jason Dwelly back to Brightwood. There's the mobile home park, and then there's the Kelly Park east and west. So we're looking at what needs to be sidewalks there to get them to the location as well.
Thank you so much, Mayor. And Dr. Jones, could I have you come onto camera for this one? Okay, so we have another question that was asking about whether the school is going to open with 8th graders. And I'm going to hand this one to Dr. Jones.
Hi, yes, 8th graders will be coming to the school. We will start full kindergarten through 8th grade, but now there may be a concern, like some of you may have a 7th grader currently at Wolf Lake Middle and they want to finish out Wolf Lake Middle. So if that situation does apply to you, you can apply for what's called a rising 5th, 8th, or 12th grade transfer through the student enrollment department. So if you have a rising 8th grader and you want them to stay at Wolf Lake, that would be zone 2, come to the new K-8 school. That is an option that you have. So hopefully that answered the question for that parent.
Hey, great, thank you. I want to go to in person, and then there are some more questions online, but does anyone in person have a question? Okay, all right, we've got some hands. Ma'am? Okay. So are you talking about pedestrians? Is your question about car traffic? Okay. Okay, let me bring up oh yeah, if you could do it, David. We'll bring up the site plan. There was a question about will cars be able to come straight across the street? John O'Neill, do you mind unmuting yourself if you can contribute? Let me try unmuting for him.
What exactly was the question? If cars could come straight across from Springfisher?
On Spinfisher, can they come
Or
straight out the
Spinfisher.
driveway and go straight across? Jason Dwelly on Spinfisher. John, are you there? Did we lose you?
Can you hear me? It muted me again.
Okay, now we can hear you.
Yes, at this point, that movement is allowed. We would have to block off a median access, and they wouldn't be able to turn left if we were to restrict that movement.
Okay, so it's
So yes.
okay. Let's Sandra, if you could unmute yourself. What is the traffic pattern you're expecting? There's a concern that all of the families are going to come out into the neighborhood, and I thought there was an expectation that most of them were going to turn on Jason Dwelly. Is that right?
Okay, as far as traffic coming to and from the school?
Leaving the school, right, is what you're asking when they come out of the car? Oh, okay, both. Yes.
Okay, based on the zoning that we were given when we did the traffic study and trends in the area and where the families are going to be pulled from, we're actually expecting about 30% of the school traffic to be coming across from Spinfisher and from that neighborhood. About 40% is going to be coming from the south where Wolf Lake currently is. There you go. Yep. Turning left in. And then the rest will be coming from the north. And that was actually a very conservative estimate. We really wanted to kind of make sure that we were making sure that the neighborhood was being taken care of when we
Okay,
did the construction.
So to summarize, is it accurate that the understanding is that the ones that will be coming from straight across actually live in that neighborhood?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Gentleman in the green? Okay, the question, there are a couple questions in this comment, but one of them was about the traffic lights. Could either Pam Richmond or Christopher Mills, could you explain? I believe there's a traffic light going in on Kelly Park, correct?
Yes,
and
that's
there-
correct.
Okay,
I'm sorry. We have our traffic signal at Kelly Park under design right now, and barring anything that we can't control, it should be operational before the school opens.
okay. Is that the only new traffic light?
Yes, that's the only new traffic light in the area.
Okay. No, correct. No light right at Spin Fisher. There's a light going in at Kelly Park and Jason Dwelly.
No, but if I could just address that crosswalk, you know, with schools, we can plan a lot, but we don't really know what's going to happen until the school opens and traffic settles down. So I've had discussions with Mayor Nelson and Chief McKinley and others at the city, and we are preparing to respond to whatever traffic issues arise there. I think that we've got it signed really well. The pavement's marked really well. But, you know, you do schools, so you know, you never really know until it opens exactly how traffic's going to shut down. But I will tell you that we are prepared to address whatever happens there. If it means we need to extend turn lanes, if we need to enhance the crosswalk. Like I said, we are installing a signal at Jason Dwelly and Kelly Park as a proactive step.
Okay, and then the second part of the question was about noise. You really shouldn't be able to hear anything that's going on in the school. It would only be when kids are outdoors. And if you could point out where we're saving trees or expecting to save trees.
Yeah, so along the right of way, we've removed essentially all the trees that we are removing. So as a neighbor, you're aware of the trees that are still in place along most of this frontage of the campus. Those are all expected to remain at the moment. And then, like she mentioned, most of the campus or the noise will be at the play fields towards the rear side of the campus, across from where you live from the school, or on the far side of where you live from the school.
I'm going to try to balance this computer. Okay, we have some more questions that are online. And there are two more people who are on the line that I did want to mention. William Wen is on. He's the Director of Transportation for Orange County Public Schools. And you actually already heard from Pamela Richmond, and she's with the city of Apopka. I apologize for not introducing her before. Mr. Wen, there actually is a question for you. And I don't know if you have an answer yet. The question is, will buses be sent to the Rock Springs Ridge neighborhood? And if it is too early, can you explain what that process looks like to figure out, you know, where the buses are going to go?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Once the attendance zone is established, we'll look at where all the students are from our student software, the addresses, and then we'll look at establishing the routes most efficient to get the kids to and from school. If there are some roads that will be restricted, we will certainly add that to the system so we'll know not to use them. But at this time, we'll look at all the neighborhoods, find safe locations to establish bus stops, and the stops will be set up so that the kids won't have to walk too far to those stops, but they'll be centrally located so that there won't be too many stops causing a lot of stop and go and creating traffic. But we'll look at that as we get closer to school.
Okay, and can you tell us what the size of the zone is that that you bus from? In other words, how far do you have to be from the school to be eligible for busing?
Yes, the state requires that those students that reside 2 miles or more from the school will be eligible for transportation. Within the 2 miles, if there are state named hazards as defined by the Florida statute, and we can provide hazardous walking bus service. It seems that at this point, and the neighborhoods are being built well with sidewalks and walking paths, so that may not be as much of a concern. But the state does require those students residing 2 miles or more from the home school to be eligible.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And Dr. Jones, I think this next one is going to be for you. There's a question, will there be a dual language program like there is currently at Zellwood? Not for the first year is what Dr. Jones is saying. So typically when something like that starts, it starts as something the school wants to do, correct? Like, do you mind coming up?
So if we're looking for a dual language, it's going to be looking at the needs of the school and that if that's a program that fits at the school. But with Zellwood being so close, we won't put like a dual language there and then also a dual language here at the new K-8. But if down the road we ever want to look at becoming like a magnet school, like let's say we want to do like a foreign language academy similar to Hillcrest Elementary, well, then we would apply for that process and we would start as an academy first and then we could build into a magnet from there, but not the first year.
Great, thank you. Okay, there was a question about the traffic light at Spinfisher, which I think we've answered that there is not a light being planned at this point there, but that is something that we in Apopka will keep an eye on after the school opens. And Commander Alemsky, I think this one is one that I'd love for you to weigh in on. What measures is the school taking to ensure parents will not park in Rock Springs Ridge during pickup and drop off? I mean, I know the principal, really communicates with parents, especially at the beginning of the school year when they're first setting those patterns. But Commander Lemsky, are you in a position where you could unmute and talk about how we enforce traffic violations at our schools? Okay, if Commander Alemsky is able to unmute later, I'll see if he can add to that.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, yes, we got you.
Yeah, so we work with our agency partners, the Apopka Police Department or Sheriff's Office. Our jurisdiction falls out to about 1,000 feet outside any school or facility that's under our guise. So we always kind of coordinate with our law enforcement partners and try to work. As a matter of fact, we're doing a couple of traffic surveys right now in Apopka coming up on Thursday next week. So we're kind of always working with them and other agencies as well.
Okay, and Chief, did you want to add anything to that?
Hey, Lauren.
We will continue to monitor it like we do. We have the same problem at the high school where some of them go into Vic's Landing and drop off their children. There are some ordinances in the city that help us enforce that. You can't drop off your child within 1 mile of a school in the city of Apopka. It is a $35 fine. We try not to get to that point. We try to educate with the schools through messages with the principal and everything else to make sure people understand that if it becomes a problem, our traffic unit will go in there and address the problem, just like speeding through the school zone. As far as a light at Spinfisher, we'll monitor that. If it looks like we're having issues there, we'll direct the traffic until we can figure out a solution to the problem. But working with the school board and everything, we'll address your problems. We'll monitor it. I will tell everybody, like I tell everybody, the first 3 weeks of school every year are mad because everybody's bringing their kids to school. This year is exceptionally challenging because the school board is short bus drivers. So they were asked for everybody to take their kids to school, which has created a backlog around all of our schools. I take my kids to Apopka High School. There's a backup there every morning created by the situation right now. But after about the first 3 or 4 weeks, you start getting people into after school programs, sports programs, and everything else. So the traffic lightens up, and it's more of a relief once the school starts going. But I'm not going to stand up here and tell anybody the first 3 weeks of any school, especially new school, are not going to be a challenge.
Thank you so much, Chief. School Board Member Byrd, were you trying to speak up on that one?
Yeah, I was just going to jump in for a second. And I love hearing from the chief because he's always just says it the way it is. It's great. No, I was just going to jump in because I actually live in a neighborhood directly across from an elementary school, and we have this issue with parents dropping off in the neighborhood, and it's very common. It happens at pretty much every school, I think. But just as it's been mentioned, the principal does a really good job of messaging to the parents that they have to be good neighbors with their community and that they aren't to do that. And then also we got the county to come in. I think it was the county that came in and put in some no parking signs along the neighborhood. And like Chief said, every now and then, if it gets kind of bad, the police will come in the neighborhood and just kind of inform the people that they can't be doing that. So, it's just something we have to kind of work through, but it really does happen at many schools, unfortunately, with neighborhoods nearby.
Okay,
Laura,
thank
can you
you. I'm sorry, go ahead. There's someone online asking a question.
George Olemsky.
Oh, go ahead, Commander.
I just wanted to add that to echo what Chief McKinley says, we are working with our occupational safety and health department as part of the emergency management crew to do these traffic surveys. And the other thing is, it's very important principals put messaging out because parents do arrive way too early. That just adds to the snarls in that traffic line. Dismissal time is dismissal time. They're going to get any earlier. They wait there sometimes for an hour, hour and a half. It just kind of adds to the whole stress of the traffic flow. But we're working with safety. They're very engaged in looking at different routes and trying to reroute things to get people off the road. And like I said before, working with our agency partners does help a big time.
Thank you. And Commander, you might be the right person for this next question. There's a question of whether there will be a crossing guard at Spinfisher. Do we know yet where the crossing guards will be? And Chief, okay, never mind. That's a Chief McKinley question.
We have already, through the budgeting process, planned on a school crossing guard at Spinfisher. We've also, beginning at the end of this school year, we'll select who the SRO for that school is going to be. So we'll have that SRO trained and under all the requirements of the Florida state statutes under the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act to be ready to go into that school. So we are prepared to provide you with the crossing guard and with the school resource officer when that school opens. The firearms range is actually in Orange County. It is a legal firearms range. I don't think the county can do anything about it. I'm up at Jason Dwelly all the time with my son with soccer, and I hear the gunfire going off too. But it's my understanding that it is a safe firearms range. It's a legal firearms range, and as long as it's legal, we're not going to be able to dismantle it.
And Dr. Jones, I have a few for you. The school have a
So VPK probably not for the first year, because in order to apply for the new school, usually we start the application process extremely early. So more likely not the first year, but it could be a possibility for the following year. But we could look because the time.
What was that question, Dr.
For
Jones?
VPK, for VPK, if VPK was going to
Okay.
be starting for the 22-23 school year.
Thank you.
No, school start times have not been established at this time. Usually that's transportation that sets the start times. That usually comes in the spring that we start that. Mm-hmm. What happens to the students if they're currently zoned for the dual language and they're going to come here? That's the question. Okay. So the parents will have the option for, I believe, for the dual language, that is a certain type of program that the kids need. So they could apply for transfer. We just have to double check with student enrollment on that they could remain in that program. Yes, correct. Yeah, and then we'll have to double check with student enrollment, but it shouldn't be a problem for them to stay at the program. Okay.
Letting Dr. Jones off the hot seat. Okay, there was a question, actually a comment, so I'm just going to read it. It's going to be a nightmare coming out of any of the RSR exits. I think there needs to be a plan now to put in a traffic light at Spinfisher. And I just wanted to read that out because, you know, the mayor's here and I know that there are some city staff on the line, so they can hear you. Zoning, okay. Question, when will we know if our children are zoned for the new school or if that information is out and I missed it? Can you tell me where I can find out? Yes, that is, yeah, we're gonna bring that slide up. But basically if you go to the OCPS website, you click on enrollment, there's a little icon for enrollment, and then you choose school rezonings. And then this is a rezoning that's already been approved by the board. So under rezonings approved by the board, you click on K-8 and it's right there. It's site 90, K-8 and 7. It takes a chunk out of the Zellwood zone and it takes a chunk out of the Wolf Lake Elementary and middle school zones, basically. All right, I know I haven't taken any hands in the room in a while. I apologize. We have almost 90 people online, so there are a lot of questions coming in there. But are there more questions in person? Okay. Okay, there's a concern. I'm just repeating this so that people online can hear. There's a neighbor who's concerned that I'm telling you that I'm repeating what you were saying so that the people online can hear you. So she's concerned that for the neighbors, you know, if they're living right next to where a light's going to go in, that the light is not an aesthetically pleasing thing to have near your house either. But that, you know, obviously what needs to be done for safety that comes first. Is that a fair summary? Is there anyone else who, I've seen some hands kind of like half go up and then come back down? Okay, in the blue shirt. Okay, the question was, is the school going to have a gifted program? That's always a yes, right? Every school. Come on over, Dr. Jones.
So yes, the school will service their gifted students. What the model looks like may vary. So some schools traditionally in elementary school usually go for one of two models. One is, well, actually three it could do. One is where we have what's called the cluster model, where a teacher that has the gifted endorsement or is working toward the gifted endorsement will service a cluster of kids that are gifted in the classroom. And those students will receive services 5 days a week and through enrichment work and providing support to the kids that need it. The other model that we'll see sometimes is what's called a pull-out model. And it's a 1 day a week that it's a grade level, and then the teacher will provide enrichment activities for those students on a particular day. The other model that we could see is that gifted, if the numbers are not high enough or the numbers not small or are small, then usually what we see is like a school that will service multiple. So they might go off for a day. So a day could be here at a school, or it could be a day at another school that they would go to. Mm-hmm. Correct. Okay, so the way that the school will start up in the North Learning community with us. If a school applies for an innovation to be part of that. It's usually something like that's really unique that the school is doing, that it's a program that they're looking to build within their school and then expand out to other schools. So a lot of innovation schools right now are really focusing on like SEL strategies and also a lot of the reading foundation strategies that are coming in, and then they share that. So at this time, it won't start off as innovation, but it could follow, that could for the following year, for the 23-24 year, could it apply to be an innovation school? It could do that.
Great, thank you. And just to, because I don't think you guys are able to hear the question. So the question on that was, will the school be an innovation school? And that's a reference to, we have a separate learning community in Orange County Public Schools that schools can apply to be in if they're offering a different model in some way. Commander Alemsky, there's a question, another question for you. They're asking basically generally, how do we secure our schools? Like, what are the methods at our disposal? What do we use? Okay. Here, Ed, why don't you give the base? Oh, and okay.
I can tell you most security features aren't going to be discussed because we don't publicly put them out there. Obviously, like with all the schools in the city of Apopka, you'll have your school resource officer that'll be there 30 minutes before school, 30 minutes after school. And, you know, they're going to have the card access to require people to get in there. As this gentleman mentioned earlier, you're going to have the area in the administration area that you can't get into the school. You go in there and you have to be buzzed into the school. And I'm sure there's other security features, but a lot of the security features in our schools aren't discussed so that everybody doesn't know what they are. Under Florida statutes, the plans are not to be released. So.
And just to add to what the chief said, yeah, we do design, this K-8 prototype has a single point of entry, which is located at the blue dot there, and that does act as a sally port, as the chief says. So once you're inside the building, you're completely secured. All the exterior doors are always constantly locked. There are typically several doors that are selected by the district that are accessed via key card. All exterior doors will have what they call a door positioning switch. What that does is that tells somebody at the front desk if someone has lodged that door open, say they're carrying stuff out, and they forget to close that door, it's going to trigger an alarm so someone goes back and closes that door. But as the chief says, other than that, we really don't talk about the security features of the building other than it's a single point entry. So once you're inside the building, outside of that sally port, you are in the secure zone.
Great, thank you. And, you know, just built into the site, you can see that there's fencing. So fencing is a method, and there are cameras inside also. The young man back there has had his hand up. Wow, that's an awesome question. The question was, will there be class pets? Are teachers allowed to decide that, or does the principal decide that? Teachers are allowed to have class pets within reason. Dr. Jones says. Right, I don't think they can have a cat, but smaller pets. Okay, that was a great question. Wow, ma'am. Okay, so basically the elementary part is 800 students and the middle part is 400 students. So at the middle school side, that was like 125 per grade is like the way the math works out, but we won't know the exact numbers until the students are enrolled. And yeah, it definitely fluctuates, but a good time to kind of know what those numbers are is October 15th of each year. We do a count of all of our students, and most have enrolled by that point. So by October 15th of the year it opens, we'll know. Right, and so it is expected to not open full. But I also just wanted to make clear that that doesn't mean like it would stop at 1,200. You know, if there are 1,220 students in the zone, they're all able to come, that sort of thing. So, okay, ma'am, yeah, with the blue. Oh, okay. Great question. Yes, absolutely. They have sports teams. Oh, you wanted to add something, Ed? Yeah, yeah. You want to speak to, okay, speak to the building.
Yeah. As far as the building elements go, the district requires us to provide a full program that a regular middle school would have in a K-8. So you have the gym, so you have basketball, you have volleyball, you would have track, you would have soccer. Now it's obviously up to the principal and the staff at the school on which activities they provide. But as far as the design of the school goes, you can have all of the activities you have at a traditional middle school or traditional elementary school within this model.
Okay, great. And Dr. Jones, if I could drag you back up here, I actually have two more questions that are yours. If you wanted to add on the sports.
So yeah, I just want to make sure that he answered the question you were asking, or was it more about, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so is it like the part, so that's why I just make sure clarify, like the soccer you're talking about or the basketball, is that like an after school club? Okay, okay, gotcha, okay. Yes. So yeah, so those typical things like different types of clubs and different electives, yes, schools will offer that. Now, the only thing that may be a little different in when you're looking at a K-8 versus especially for the 6 through 8 part of a K-8 versus a middle school, you're comparing 400 students to 1,200 students. So electives will be there. They may not have as great of a range or offer some unique things that a larger middle school, but yes, they will have electives. But the principal does determine, based upon the budget, how does that look? Mhm. Yeah, so let's take the model of, so when your daughter signed up for elective, oh, I'm sorry. So you're asking about when, so just to make sure we're all clear, so I keep forgetting about this. Yeah. So when you're talking about electives, just making sure what's the time frame that you can make a decision on whether, hey, do I need to stay at Wolf Lake and I apply for that rising 8th grade transfer, or do I come to the new K-8 if you're zoned for that? So traditionally, when you are at Wolf Lake Middle School, it's usually the springtime that the kids sign up for electives. So that would be a great, that when the school opens up, then that principal, he or she would have an idea of the electives at that time. So that's when they would start reaching out. So that would be the gauge, similar to what you're doing in a middle school. It's going to be the same thing in the K time frame is going to be the same. Mhm. She has a, yep. So we will always, so that's federal law. So we will always service students that are serviced for ESE. Usually if we have students that are milder exceptionalities, usually what we see in the middle school, side is that the ESE support facilitator will push into the core classrooms to work directly with kids, as well as one of the periods may or may not, depending upon the way that it's scheduled at the school. They have in middle school, sometimes they have a class called Learning Strategies, which is just an additional class to help for the middle school side. For the elementary, it's going to depend upon, usually if it's not if it's servicing students who may have a specific learning disability, or usually like the milder exceptionalities like speech and language, depending upon the kids, usually it may be a pull out or push in, depending upon, how we cluster students and the needs, and that's all the same. Yes, anytime, because that's ESE. Okay, and there's a learning space. Mhm. So uniforms are determined. That would be a that was going to be a school-based decision with the principal and the community. So that's usually how it comes. So usually it'll work through the principal will work through your school advisory council, the SAC, and working through PTA in order to do that. So that's usually how uniforms. Yeah, it's one start and end time that'll be the same for the schools because we will model after the current K-8 schools, which all have one start time and one end time. No, transportation determines that in the spring because they have to look at the transportation routes and make that determination.
Okay, so yeah, we'll have a better idea on that a little bit closer to the start of the school year after it's figured out. And I did want to clarify, someone asked, are you saying there will be no sports offered to the middle school students? No, that's not what we're saying. So I want to clarify that. The middle school students will have all the middle school sports that they have at middle schools, and it's got a full track and a full gym.
Lauren, it's difficult to hear you.
Okay.
There you go. Can you just
Should
say
I-
that again?
Yes, that there will be sports offered for the middle school students, all of the standard sports that you have at a middle school, and there's a full track and a full gym. Was that better? Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. Okay, there's another sidewalks question. Pam Richmond, if you happen to still be on the line, there's a question. Are sidewalks going to be built on Kelly Park Road for kids in the Kelly Park Road neighborhoods? Or Christopher, if you know.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
We're looking into right now building a sidewalk on Kelly Park Road from Jason Dwelly east. Where is the area that we're talking about? Because there's already a sidewalk, I think, on Jason Dwelly from Kelly Park Road down to the site.
Yeah, I think they're asking about the other direction, where there aren't the sidewalks now. No sidewalks.
We're looking into all of it. It's just things are gonna depend on where the students are coming from, where they're walking, and some of that information just isn't available now. But we are proactively preparing for what comes our way.
Yeah, and we do have a planning department within Orange County Public Schools that specifically works with our sister municipalities to work on issues just like this. So that is something that'll be worked on as the school gets closer and closer. We have a question over here in person. I know that okay, well, I want to repeat what you're saying for the online audience. We have a neighbor who lives quite close who's concerned about how it's going to look, what trees are going to stay, particularly because the school is pretty tall. And I was just talking to Craig today, and he said something about we have the ability to add some more trees in, and there's some dead trees being removed. Do one of you know any more about that you could speak to that a little bit, David?
So just a little bit, that area that Craig was talking about is this section further to the south of the campus. You're specifically speaking about Spinfisher and Rock Springs Run? This area? Understood. So across the street in Rock Spring Run. So yeah, like I mentioned, those trees are intended to stay. There is some additional landscaping going across this buffer. It will be younger landscaping is the way I'll say it. I don't know if you want to add more to that than that, Ed. Right.
No, absolutely. Well, hang on. I've got people online who I haven't answered any questions from. So let me get to some of theirs and then I'll bring it back into the room. There's a question about, okay, will schools start and stop at the same time for both K-5 and 6-8? Yes. There's a question about the hedge line that was discussed. The hedge line being put in place of the trees that were removed. How high are those hedges in relation to our neighborhood orchid estates? Do we know how high the hedges are going to be? Ed is saying, the architect is saying 4 to 6 feet and then up. Oh, then they'll grow. Okay, and so they'll start out at 4 to 6 feet and then they'll grow taller. Okay, are there any plans for a high school? Okay, so we do have land for a high school up in the Apopka area, but right now it's not in the 10-year plan. The projections don't show a need for it in the next 10 years at this point. That is something we have a department called Advanced Planning that they sit down year round and they revise the list of schools every year that are going to be coming up. And we consider things really solid if they're in the next 3 years. I see you. I just need to get to some folks online and then I'll call on you again. How are you looking to separate the middle school from elementary school grade levels? Yeah, Ed.
So the middle school kids are all housed on the 3rd floor of the building. So all their classrooms, they spend their day up there. Typically what we've seen the staff do on this prototype at other sites is they dedicate one of the stairwells to the middle school students, and that's their stairwell to go up and down the building. So they don't really mix a lot with the elementary kids. So the elementary kids are on the 1st and 2nd floor, and all the middle schoolers are on the upper floor.
There's a question if the middle schoolers will have a typical bell schedule. We can check on that. If there are questions that aren't answered at the end of the meeting, feel free to come up and get our contact info and we can follow up. There are bells in the building, so they could be used for a bell schedule. And the architect is saying that it's possible to have the bells ring just on like the middle school floor, that the building's capable of that. There's a question about what will be the population for the middle school versus the elementary school. It's designed for about 400 for the middle school and about 800 for the elementary school. And our student enrollment department built the zones with the idea that that's where they'll end up. You know, you can never predict exactly how many students are going to come to a school, but they zone it in a way that they will end up at approximately those sizes. And I did also want to read a comment that that board member Bird typed in about the high school. She said, we have property that is already owned on Round Lake Road for Relief High School. At this point, the school is not in the plan, so that's the 10-year plan, because we don't have enough students yet to fill a new school. Will middle school students be on the same bus as the elementary students? Mr. Wen, is that one you could answer for K-8s? Are the middle school and elementary school students both on the same bus?
Yes, if they're on the same bell schedule, so they will be on the same bus. We have other K-8s. We have not had any troubles or concerns from the other schools at this time.
Okay, so yes, all right. There's a comment about what is the plan for sidewalks in front of Orchid Estates and prohibiting drivers from blocking our entrances and cutting through the neighborhood. For context, those homes are going to be built along Jason Dwelly. Okay. I think we mentioned that the city is looking at where additional sidewalks could go. And that's something that's being worked on so that those will be in place before school opens. And in terms of, you know, enforcement, I know we were talking about the school have their own SRO. And if they see things going on the surrounding roadways, we do work with our partners in Apopka on enforcement. Is there anything else you want to add on that, Chief, about people cutting through? We're good? Yes, same comment as we mentioned with Rock Springs Ridge, that, you know, we'll certainly address it if it occurs and as it occurs. Now, ma'am, you were in the Bears shirt, yeah. Oh, it was about the bells, so we got the question. Okay, and there was a question Dr. Jones, there was a question about like if there's a kindergartner with autism, would there be a special class? I don't know if that goes to your previous comment that a lot of times that an aide comes into the classroom. Dr. Jones can get more specific on how those sorts of situations are handled.
So when we look at students that, I think the previous question was before that we talked about if a child is ESE and on the milder exceptionality, that all schools will service within the school. If there are students that require more support, something more self-contained, sometimes with our students that are ASD may require a classroom of that maybe at a particular school. So depending upon the needs, we would have to look at the student's IEP in order to make that determination. But if it's on the IEP and says that the student needs something, more self-contained, if the school doesn't offer it, then what we look at what is a school that's neighboring by that may service the needs of that student. So say, for example, if it's ASD, if the new K-8 does not start the first year having that, then the closest school right now to, depending on where you live, the closest school right now would probably be Rock Springs. So that may happen for the year, but we constantly look at ESE feeder patterns every single year. So I work with the ESE department, and we try to make sure that what we try to do is make sure that we can have a program that's close to a parent's home, so you're not driving all across the county. So we evaluate that every single year to look at that. So. Mm-hmm. So the first question is, when will the principal be chosen? So the principal will be announced usually in January of next year. So we'll advertise it in December of this year. People will apply, and then I'll recommend the name to the superintendent, and then Dr. Jenkins will recommend that name to the school board for approval. So do feeder school teachers get the first? Yes. So the way that it works is if you are, I believe from the slide, is if you are an annual, it'll depend upon your contract type. So we start with yes, there we go. So we start with a PSC continuing contract as well. That's what starts in January. And then in February, March, then we work with PSC continuing contract and annual contract teachers. So usually the practice has always been that if schools are losing because they're getting relief school, traditionally always in the past that those teachers will apply to the new school, because we know that they're going to be losing positions just because the school is essentially shrinking because the new school is coming. So traditionally that's always been done. So some type of after-school program will be available at the school. It's going to depend upon what the principal chooses for the after-school provider, because it could be something that they do in-house, like their OCPS extended day program, or they may contract out with another after-school provider, such as Champions or ASP or a different program. But there will be an after-school program in some way, shape, or form, and before school too, before and after school.
So with that, we've gotten through all of the questions, but we have one more in the room, but then let me explain what we're going to do. If anyone online has questions and they just haven't thought of them yet, please email them to me. My email address is Lauren, LAUREN, .Roth, ROTH, @OCPS.net. And anyone in the room who thinks of a question after we end, you can feel free to come up and chat with us. So let me take one more question, and then I want to give the floor to School Board Member Byrd. Ma'am? Question is 1-to-1. Is that going to be like that at the new school? Yes. Yes. Yeah, it's now standard. Now that it's been rolled out to all the schools. And we've actually been doing that for a few years, where when new schools get built, they automatically go 1-to-1. It was really just existing schools we were catching up on for a while there. School Board Member Byrd, I think one more question may have come in. Let me check. And then
That was just me. I was just putting your email in there
so
they could see it.
Okay, awesome. Are there any closing
But-
remarks you wanted to make?
Sure, sure. You know, I am. This school is going to be a really great addition to our community, and I know parents are nervous about if they're going to get all the same things at the school that they have at their school now, because we have some wonderful schools in our area, and I know that that parents are nervous, and this is always the case when a new school is opening. But let me just assure you that this school is going to be just as stellar as our Wolf Lake schools are, and our other schools in the area. So don't be nervous. We're going to do great. It's going to be a fantastic school. Dr. Jones and I have already chatted about different ideas for some innovative programs there. And as it was, people asked about it being an innovation school, with Wolf Lake Elementary being an innovation school, that provides a great opportunity for some partnerships to go on between those two schools. So there's really a lot of opportunity there to do some really neat things. So don't be nervous. It's going to be great. It's an exciting time. This is just it's just so exciting. So I'm so thankful for all of you to take some time out of your busy schedules to be here, to see what's going on. Thank you again to our architects and our contractors and all the staff from OCPS that took time out of their day to be here as well to help answer questions. We really do appreciate it. And again, if you have any more questions, you can always email Lauren, or you can, of course, always email me, melissa.bird@ocps.net. And I think that's it. Thank you, Lauren.
Sure. And before I end the hang on just a second. Well, ma'am, she can't hear you. Just a second, ma'am. Commander Alemsky had added some comments. Can you hear me on it? Okay. Commander Alemsky had added some comments in saying that in addition to the single point of entry, we have an enterprise visitor management system in place that is tied into a national database. That's what he wanted to say. All visitors must check in on the system so the district will know at any time who is on our campus, including vendors, and will determine who may have to be escorted. Okay. And did you have one last question, ma'am? Okay, Ed, you want to speak to that? So I'm just going to repeat for our folks online. There was a concern from the neighbors about how big the school is, and whether the elected officials have driven around and seen it. And they're discussing that yes, they have, and the architect is suggesting that people drive by Pershing School south of downtown, because this same school has been built there, so they can get a feel for how it's going to look. So on that note, I'm going to end the online meeting, but again, feel free to send me or School Board Member Bird any further questions. So thank you.